Hey, welcome back everyone. So in this video I'm going to sculpt a torso in Zbrush, and I'm sharing these models for free. So what I'm doing is creating free assets for artists to download, implement, and use. So the two places you can get them right now are like Gumroad, and it was Sketchfab, but now it's fab.com. So I've only got a couple models up there, but this one will be up there by the end of day. And I'm just going to keep adding to it based upon your guys' feedback. So if you guys see value in it. Now, the set on my Gumroad, I specifically downsized those, and by that I mean smaller polygon counts, and applied UVs to them so that they could be imported into Procreate. Clip Studio, you don't need UVs, but you still want relatively low polygon counts, especially if you're bringing in multiple models on the same layer, that kind of thing, laying out a scene. Again, these are pieces, a lot of them. I'll get into some eventual full characters, but I wanted to do pieces. That way, if you needed like an arm in a foreshortened pose, you could maneuver it that way. Same thing with the torso, but it's kind of clunky because they are pieces, so it'll probably help some people and other people maybe not so much. But the neat thing about them is you can rotate them around and you can light them, you can change, and Procreate, you can color them. And then if you bring these models into something like Blender, you can take it even way further, right? You can colorize it. You can even sculpt over top, add pieces together, right? You could take all these pieces of characters that I'm doing, like a bad action figure, and you try to like put them back together. So hopefully it'll give some people some reference material. I don't know. I just thought it'd be a cool idea. I got to be honest, I really got the idea because I've been working with a buddy of mine, Chris Sculpt, and he's going to be bringing you some really neat content on how to bring in models in Blender and actually utilize line and painting effects on the models and utilize that for some really neat source material. So I'll let you know as he brings more out on that. You can check him out on my featured channels list. Amazing 3D artist. But then it gave me the idea to do stuff like this. And again, I don't know that a lot of people will like this. I'm going to model and sculpt anyways. I've been wanting to get more into making stuff for 3D print. A buddy of mine just printed out one of my pieces the other day. It was amazing to see that in actuality, and I've been wanting a printer for a long time now, so I'll eventually get one of those. Been talking to my son about it, so it'll just be something cool to do. So I'm going to make these sculpts anyways, and I really like these aspect to improve my knowledge on anatomy. Obviously got a lot to learn, but it's a great way to learn. And I'll share more of that as well on the channel as I get better, as I get more proficient. But I'd really like to know what you guys think about it. Like if you go over to, fab.com or Gumroad and you grab this, let me know. Let me know if you find them to be beneficial, if they'd be better in a specific way, in a format, all that good stuff. I want this to be a learning and growth experience for all of us. And so on Fab, the neat thing is, even if you don't want to download the models to bring them into your own software, you don't want to mess with any of that, they have a 3D viewing option on there. So it's really neat just for reference material as an artist. Like if you're not already going to one of these sites and then looking at these models in different views, you're kind of probably, and you're just a 2D artist, you're probably doing yourself a little bit of a disservice because it is so freaking helpful. Like I just can't believe I wasn't doing this years ago. I don't know, I knew they existed. I just wasn't really checking them out and thinking of it like that. It's so much easier to go there and look at all these different models and rotate them around and use them for drawing. Tough camera angles, proportions, and then it does kind of factor in like well, what if you made your own characters and that became your source material, right? You'd only have to model, like you'd start with your main character, right? Your protagonist, and then maybe a couple, you'd work into the secondary characters and then your antagonists. Like you'd get a couple of your main base characters that are always showing up in the scene. And at that point, maybe it would be worth it to sculpt them and even rig them, especially with something like Blender where you can like pose your models. I mean, it does take a pretty steep learning curve, or you could pair up with somebody that already knows it. Obviously, that would circumvent the process and speed things up quite a bit. Share your skill ability with them for their skill ability, right? Like a trade-off. But at any rate, it just, I guess the hard part is there's so many possibilities. And because of that, we can get easily distracted, right? Like, oh, there's so much cool stuff I could do with just sculpting or just drawing. So many ideas that I could draw. And then all of a sudden, shiny object syndrome gets in the way, distractions are factored in, and nothing gets done. And so I think a good way is always to look at how much we're actually producing. What's the end result? Did you make a product at the end of the day or end of the week or whatever your micro and macro goals are for this stuff? You kind of have to look at that. I think as creative people, we have to be very in tune with that, because again, we can get caught up into always studying. Like that's one of my things, is that I like to do lots of studies. I like to do a lot of piecework. For one, it allows me to zero in on specific aspects of things that I'm trying to learn and get a better sense of control over them. But it can also be a huge distraction, or it could become this thing of like, well, yeah, but did I get anything completed as a project? And that can be a really bad habit, to not be accountable in that way. So that's where working with others is a good idea. I don't do enough of that, but a lot of times someone's not just going to work with you on an unfinished piece. Well, never, right? They're not going to work with you on an unfinished piece. You've got to complete a project. Now, once you complete a full project, then you can fit in some studies, right? And so it's got to be some kind of percentage thing or awareness, whether it's weekly or monthly or whatever it is, but there has to be some accountability there, obviously. But again, when you're maybe a freelance artist or self-employed, like me, I'm totally self-employed, it can really be a negative. I can really let myself go too far, and that's when I have to have these reality checks. Now, you're going to get other reality checks like, oh, I'm not paying the bills, or people are unsubscribing from my YouTube channel. I don't know. That's a really bad metric. Like, that shouldn't affect you in that way. But maybe it can, though. In this new world of like everything's a metric, everything's an analytic bit of data, I definitely think it does factor in somewhere, but it shouldn't control your life. It shouldn't determine. It definitely shouldn't mess with your happiness. If it is, then you need to quit looking, right? And it's just like taking breaks from all our phones and stuff like that. It's really a good thing. So that accountability of getting stuff made, but essentially, I also think a big part of us getting ahead with our schedules, with these massive tasks of, like, say, making a full book or animating a short animation or whatever your goal is, making a mini game, whatever you're after. The only way you're really going to do that effectively is if you figure out tricks of the trade. And that's where I look at stuff like this. That's why I sculpt these models, and I'm sharing free models with you and sharing the process on the channel. I know that most people come to this channel to watch drawing videos, right? But at some point, if you look at certain aspects of your work and you're like, man, I really struggle with tough angles. I really struggle with lighting. How do I get past that? There's all sorts of ways to go about it. But one of the things that I found, and I found this with some really amazing artists. I mean, I'm not going to throw out names, but I'll tell you what, one that's already out there that doesn't, because some artists don't tell you this. Some artists do what I'm showing you here, but they don't talk about it. Like they're scared, or like they're, I don't know. They don't want you to know the magic behind the curtain, right? But one of the bigger name guys that you'll obviously recognize that does a similar kind of thing is Alex Ross. So I watched this video where he actually sculpted, and he used a regular sculpt, but like a putty, but he sculpted the character for the Fantastic Four to basically generate and create his own reference and his own source material, which I thought was really neat. And he was like, you know what? He even says something like, and I like the idea of sculpting them because then I won't feel bad tracing them. And I thought that was, I mean, there was a lot more cool stuff to it and his workflow, obviously. But just think about it like that. When you see somebody that prolific, that amazing at what they do, and has attained massive success, and they even looked at, utilizing models and different ways of producing the work, then it makes you realize utilizing tools like Blender, Zbrush, whatever you can get your hands on, Unreal Engine, all these cool things that are actually open source with some amazing, of course that makes you a better artist, and that would be worth at least taking a look at. So I don't know. I just wanted to talk a little bit about that. But again, this video is really just tell you about the free models that I'm making. I hope you enjoy them. I hope they help. Let me know what you want to see more of. Good luck with your art. and bye for now.